All right, thank you. I'm a massive nerd. I do this kind of stuff for fun. But we all had a bit of fun last night. It's one of the last sessions of the event, so I'm not going to make you guys memorize any of these equations. But just trust me that they will come in useful later on. Today I'm here to tell you two things. Firstly, if it wasn't already obvious from your time here at Summit, Atlassian's serious about understanding teams. And secondly, I'm here to show you that data, combined with mathematics, can produce something beautiful. So this is Atlassian's mission statement. But not only is our mission to unleash the potential in every team, we want to actually take that further. We want to be thought leaders in how teams work and operate. So we conduct research into teams in a variety of ways. One of the first things we've produced is the Atlassian Playbook, which optimize processes. They provide frameworks for getting shit done. Now, they're very useful if you're a software team or if you're an IT team, but they also work for all sorts of other teams as well. For example, you might be in an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. We even had an Atlassian who ran his family as an Atlassian team using our playbook while his wife was on holidays. There's a public blog about that on our website. The second thing we've done is internally we use personas to help optimize for empathy within software development. This helps us understand what you guys, our customers, want, but it also kind of tells us that roles and teams are kind of sometimes ill-defined. Thirdly, and more recently, we've been studying the dynamics of high-performing teams. And what our research is showing us is that communication is really important. Now, there's other research that's been done that tells us this as well. There was a study published in the Harvard Business Review that told us that frequency of communication and the distribution of your communication, both inside your own team and outside of your team, is really what defines whether you're going to be high-performing or not. And importantly, the stuff I'm interested in is that there's data signatures for teams. So you can measure this stuff. So I wanted to add my own flavor to the research. So I started by looking at our organizational chart. We have over 2,000 employees. We apparently have over 200 departments. And we also apparently have a staggering 800 job titles. But I don't believe that this is really how Atlassian works together. So I looked to the data. And I started looking at our Hipchat usage. So if you imagine you have four employees, and we designate an interaction with a line, we can build up what we call a network graph by drawing lines between people who talk. And furthermore, we can actually represent more frequent communication by wider lines. So now we imagine we don't represent our employees by these cartoons, but we represent them by white dots. And we have one dot for every employee, so 2,000 odd dots. And we initialize them randomly in a sphere. And this is where the fun comes in. With a little bit of magic and a little bit of code, I use Python and a bit of help from Gephi, we can actually start to use these equations to form something amazing. So what these equations actually are is it's called a forcing algorithm. So what it does is it takes this network graph, it takes how often you communicate with different people, and it starts to automatically cluster you together in groups. So let's see it in action. Remember, every dot represents an Atlassian employee. And what we're going to do is run this algorithm for a little bit and watch it converge. You can see things cluster pretty quickly. And it slows down. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the Atlassian people graph. Now remember, each dot represents an employee. So you can see that there's a really intricate web of stuff happening here. And each line represents a connection or an instant message between employees. So where do we even start to begin in analyzing this? Well, luckily at Atlassian, we actually know stuff about our employees. We know where they work, we know how they operate. So what we can do is actually attach metadata to all this visualization in the form of color. So the first thing I added was the average time at which someone sends a message, right? So if I'm in Sydney, the average time I send a message might be around midday, for example. For people in San Francisco, that time is different. So what we can actually see is that to first order, this graph is actually clustered by time. So we see on the right-hand side of the screen, we have 4 p.m. in Sydney, and on the left, we have a different time in San Francisco. Which makes sense, because people probably communicate more frequently with people in their time zone. The next sort of information we can attach is gender. And we can instantly see how diverse we are as a company, and to some extent, how diverse different teams are within Atlassian. Now, if we go back to the geography for a bit, we can actually choose the color to represent which office people work in, okay? And again, we see that things are broadly clustered by where people work, which makes perfect sense. So we have Sydney on the right, our largest office in orange. We have our newest friends, the Trello family, over on the left in New York. San Francisco, Austin, Manila. We have our support offices in Porto Alegre in Brazil and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, up the top. Now, I mentioned we have something like 200 departments. If we simplify this as much as possible, we get something like this, where a few individual departments do cluster together, but what we're really left with is this really large developer and management swarm in the middle. The final thing we can do is look at how this varies by your job title. Again, I mentioned we have 800 distinct job titles. But I reduced this down to just a few. We see managers, designers, developers, a web of analysts in the middle, kind of connecting between teams. Accountants work closely together, and all our advocates and support guys as well work close together in the top of the plot. So to finish up, I'd like you guys to think about what your team looks like under the hood, rather than the organization chart. Maybe it looks like Atlassian. Maybe you have larger but equally well-connected teams. What communication challenges do you face in your workplace? And what silos do you need to break down? Who are the pivotal communicators in your business? And if it's not you, then why not? Thank you.